Hello, what is your name?
My name is Ruby Hamilton Vargas.
How old are you, Ruby?
I'm 85 years old.
So, Ruby, where were you born?
I was born January the 24th, 1931 in Tulare, California,
And what
California,
and what
United
country?
States.
There you go. Awesome. So, Ruby, I am going to review the definition of gender and sex. And after you may comment on those definitions, like what is your perspective of those? So, according to the World Health Organization, sex refers to the biological and psychological characteristics that define men and women. Gender refers to the socially constructed roles, behaviors, activities, and attributes that a given society considers appropriate for men and women. So, Ruby, can you comment on the definition of gender? How was gender in your time growing up? Did you see it? What was the constructed roles, the behaviors, the activities that society considered appropriate for women in your time growing up?
My father was a white man born in New York of German descent. My mother was a full-blood Native American woman. So I was raised in two worlds. In the white man's world, as I grew up, we lived in the cities. I went to all the schools around in the cities. I learned to read and write in the white man's world. And as a child, gender to me was good because when I started school, I'd go up, I had to enroll my own self, I had to do all my own talking, and everybody always respected me. I never ever in my life heard a teacher call me a dumb Indian because the native people were considered lazy, don't work, don't want to work, and do anything. But I was never treated that way. I was just another little girl in school. My mother, on the other hand, stayed home and raised us kids. So I learned to go to church. I learned what it was to cook and to be a mama and have children. She taught me that. As I grew up, I always went to school, but I personally was always treated with respect because I gave respect. I learned. I was very smart, very intelligent, best speller in the class. So I learned that way, always being treated good, and I was always happy. I had a lot of friends and they never called me a dirty Indian. But it was some of the native people were treated that way. But my mother said, Mama had 6 daughters, and she says, well, I want a better life for my girls. So living down in the valley, going to all these schools, and I just learned everything all the other kids learned, and I never felt different as a person. But I always knew I was native, but no one ever said anything to me about it, but because kids are kids. And I had a very happy childhood.
Ruby, how has gender affected your life?
Gender
for being a woman or a female growing up?
Gender is how people see you. You can be called uh, you can be called a lazy Indian like my people were called, but when I went to school and as I grew up, I was me. And people treated me as me. And I was just like everybody else. I lived that way. I abided by all the rules. I was never different. And and as I was smaller, I really never thought as being native, I didn't live around the native people. I lived I lived in a white man's world and I learned how to exist out here. That's the only life I knew. So people didn't as for gender, I was treated just like any normal little girl or teenager because gender is who you are. I live in two worlds, but I also know my native side also. But to me, I'm still me. I'm still a woman. I'm a mother, a grandma. And to achieve happiness in your gender, doesn't matter who you are, where you came from, what nationality you are, it's how you think of yourself. I like myself. So
do you like being a woman?
Okay, a woman does more work than the man does. The men think they're all this and that. Well, I'll tell you, you know what? I do more work than you. I have the kids. I send them to school. I take care of them. I do all the business. I do all the banking, doctors, everything. That's a woman's job. And I was always proud of my children. I took good care of them the best way I knew how. And I learned as a woman to stand up for my rights. And I did a lot of things. A woman is the one who keeps the house. A woman is the one who takes care of everything. And I was always proud of that. And I let people know. And when you're a woman that works, sticks up for your rights, and does a good job, people respect you. And that's how they're going to treat you.
So, growing up, starting to get into the workforce, was there ever a time where a man have ever told you you can't do that job or you can't do that because you're a woman? And if they did try to tell you, what have you said?
I was never treated that way. A man never told me I couldn't do it because I don't think they had the nerve. Number one, they knew who I was. Number two, when you get a job, they know all about you. And this was years ago, but it didn't matter. A person can look at you and they know who you are. And every time I got a job, I did the best I could and did my job, and they had nothing bad to say to me. Even people that, me personally, myself, I was always, people always knew me. She's Indian. She's Indian. But no man ever talked to me that way. Never. And if they did, I sort of feel sorry for them because you know what? I learned the white man's way. I'll just tell the boss what you said to me. And if a person knows you stand up for your rights as a woman, they won't mess with you. And nearly all my bosses were men in the schools. All my bosses were men, and they were so nice to me.
That's good.
They treated me with respect. Well, Ruby, how's it going, and everything like that, because it's how you carry yourself and it's who you are. And hey, I know who I am. 85, I still know who I am, and they still don't say nothing to me.
That's really, really good, Ruby. So, what labels define you as a woman in our society?
A label?
Yeah, what are some labels that society give women?
I'm defined as a hard-working lady, a smart lady. Don't mess with her, because I do the best I can, and I know right from wrong. I live in two worlds. So just nobody's ever done this to me, so I really can't say how I would act, because I've never been put down. I'm me, and I walk with pride about who I am. I don't care where I am, if I'm in the mountains or I'm in a big city. I am who I am.
So, can you give me some labels that you've heard people give women in society, how society sees women? We know how you define yourself, but what are some labels that society gives women, that not knowing that person?
Well, I've heard people say a lot of things about women, different nationalities, some educated, some not educated. But I'm gonna say something about me. I'm Native. I look Native. I look like my mother. I was at ceremonies one time, and this German lady came from Germany to be with us, and she said, she says, I want to meet a Native woman. She says, I want to find out. I've always read in all the books how smart they are, how strong they are, and all this and that. Because in Germany, the men are the supreme beings, meaning a man rules a woman. They have no right to say anything. So this lady came up to me, sitting up in the mountains, and she says, Ruby, she says, I want to ask you a question. And I said, okay. She says, I want to be like you. I looked at her and I says, like me? She says, yes. She says, you're so brave and you're so strong and all this and that. She says, I want to know how you got that way, and how come you're so brave and so smart and do everything. I says, I just looked at her. And that's what she read in the books, but of course that's me. And she says, I want to know how you got to be that way. I want to be like you, she told me. And I says, well, I just I just believe, I just do what I think is right for me. I'm happy with what I do. And when you're happy with what you do, whether it's play, work, or business, jobs, that makes you that person. And I'm that person. One time I traveled a lot. And somebody asked me one time something